This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Between 2000 and 2019, the Asian American population doubled, and it's expected to reach 46 million by 2060. Currently, Asian Americans make up 7% of the US population and are the fastest growing racial group. But as the population has grown, Asian American representation in prominent positions, from politics to entertainment and more, is still lacking. A recent survey found that 58% of Americans were unable to name a prominent Asian American public figure. Ken Jeong, he's from Greensboro, North Carolina. And over 40% of Americans cannot name an AAPI historical moment more recent than the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Those stats point to a real gap in public education around Asian Americans and their history. But we've seen a little improvement within the last year as states like Illinois and New Jersey became some of the first states to require an Asian American history class in public schools. And in April, the House passed a bill to help establish the first national AAPI museum. But across much of the country, Asian Americans aren't just missing from public education, they're also missing from data about what the American public thinks. Pew Research has an explanation for this. They say when they're conducting research, a typical survey has 1,000 respondents. A common rule is to not publish subgroup poll results with fewer than 100 people, and due to the size of the Asian population, there would only be about 60 Asian people polled for every 1,000 people. So their data doesn't always get reported. Experts say to improve this data collection problem, institutions need to work on building trust with the community to get more people to participate. And on the big screen, AAPI people accounted for less than 6% of speaking roles and less than 4% of leads in US films, according to a University of Southern California study. But some film directors are working to do better. Newsy correspondent Amber Strong tells us more about AAPI representation in film and the way these films are working to touch on multiple parts of the Asian American experience.
Joseph, are you coming for Easter?
I don't know, Mom. I'm really busy. I just tested for this pilot.
You're going to be a pilot?
Career, faith, and complicated family dynamic.
How dare you! How dare you!
We should put them both in the box and ship it.
Just a few themes in the new comedy, Easter Sunday. Set in Daly City, California, the real home to 32,000 Filipinos, the movie is written by Ken Ching and loosely based on the life of Chang and Filipino-American comedian Joe Coy.
A lot of times our stories, especially when we're talking about immigrants, focuses on sort of what I call the noble struggle of immigration, and we never sort of get to relish in the joy and the happiness.
The film gives nods to classics like It's a Wonderful Life and Friday. The entire film is filled with little things, Easter eggs, if you will, meant to celebrate Filipino culture.
All the food that's included in the movie are literally written verbatim in the screenplay. It's like, this is the dish you should be cooking here. This is the dish that when Tita Teresa is trying to curry Joe Jr.'s favor, she's offering her a dessert, and the dessert should be this, polvoron.
A reoccurring struggle in the film is its central character's difficulty navigating stereotypes in Hollywood. According to a study from CAPE and the Gina Davis Institute, about a third of API characters embody at least one common stereotype, such as the martial artist, the model minority, or the exotic woman.
How did you figure out how to make this movie that celebrated Filipino culture without making fun of Filipino culture?
That is a natural byproduct of allowing characters to just be human on screen. That makes sense. If you are able to express these characters' humanity, I don't see how you would laugh at them.
There was brief talk about moving Easter Sunday and its all-star cast of AAPI actors to streaming due to COVID-19. But filmmakers tell Newsy they and Coy had their hopes set on something bigger.
Again, these are people we do not see on the big screen often, if ever. And it was really important to him. It was really important to us as producers involved, and to the studio, frankly, that we get to present this movie the way we intended to.
In a movie titled Easter Sunday, there are obviously themes of faith. According to the Harvard Divinity School, 90% of people in the Philippines are Christian, the majority Catholic.
It is undeniably such a large part of the Filipino and Filipino Americans specifically experience.
The topic of faith is becoming more prevalent in shows with AAPI leads. Miss Marvel, a show airing on Disney Plus, relies heavily on Islamic traditions.
Every time you gossip, you make the baby Jesus cry.
Or take the Kim family in the CBC show Kim's Convenience, which features numerous plots centered around the Korean family's Christian faith.
Church is, frankly, one of the central hubs of the community in which people find community, right? Especially newly arrived immigrants. That's where they go to find their countrymen, find solidarity and sort of a sense of collective belonging.
Easter Sunday is now playing purposely in theaters only. Amber Strong, Newsy, Washington.
All right, many thanks, Amber, for diving more into AAPI representation in film. As Amber mentioned, the movie Easter Sunday features a Filipino-American family, and our own Casey Mendoza sat down with film critic Joey Morona to talk more about the intersection of Filipino culture and film.
Tell me about the first time you saw a Filipino character or a Filipino actor, on screen.
Growing up, I watched General Hospital religiously, and the first Filipino actor that I remember watching was Tia Carrere. She joined the show in 1985. That was 7 years before, Wayne's World, and I think 5 years before True Lies.
What are things like other stories about Filipino communities, Filipino American communities that you want to see more?
Well, I think Easter Sunday proved that there's a lot of talent within the Filipino community in the film industry. So, let's get them to tell their stories, whatever those are. Not only is there Joe Coy, but you mentioned Dante Basco, but Filipinos are having a moment, I think, in the entertainment industry. You've got, Olivia Rodrigo playing a Filipino in High School Musical, the series. Her is playing Belle in the live action version of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. You've got Darren Criss, Vanessa Hudgens, so whatever they want to do, listen to them, and tell those stories. Personally, I think, I'd like to see, maybe a romantic comedy, some romantic movies, because I think this particularly, among Asian men, we're not really allowed to be romantic leading men unless you're, Henry Golding. So I'd like to see that, Asian American men are not often seen as, romantic or even masculine. So I'd like to see that.